My name is Tanner Sharp, and speaking on budgeting, especially for younger age people like ourselves, I'd say the first and foremost most important thing is similar to the phrase, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. When you can start with saving and start with your finances, it's better to start younger rather than wait until you're 10, 15 years out of retirement. Right now really is the best time to take the opportunity to look at your finances and really get it under wrap. Especially one thing that I see with a lot of younger people like ourselves is that if they're able to develop a habit while they're younger, it makes it a lot easier for them to maintain that habit throughout their life. One thing that I preach a lot to a lot of my clients is something called the 20-60-20 rule. So that's basically percentages of your income. 20% you pay yourself first, so out of your paycheck you put 20% away into savings. 60% of it should go towards the things that are necessities, your rent, your standard income that's going to come every month, and then 20%, if possible, is going to go towards your play money. I understand right now that a lot of younger age kids don't really have that 20% to kind of play around with, but one thing that I see is a huge help is instead of putting a dollar amount away every month is actually put a percentage. Because one of the huge economic rules of finances is that the people that make more money end up spending more money. When reality is if you're making $30,000 a year right now and you make $50,000 next year, you can still live off of that $30,000. You have $20,000 extra to pay or to spend or to save, not spend or pay, to save. But a lot of people use that $20,000 to go out and have fun. So really, that's kind of just based off the very beginning thing is have good habits. One thing also that would be huge for younger age kids is debt is going to happen. There are things that require debt. I mean, it'd be awesome to go through life without debt, but frankly, school isn't cheap. Cars aren't cheap. Houses aren't cheap when it comes to that time as well. So when I talk to debt with a lot of my clients is first and foremost try and avoid debt. But if there is a need for debt, make it a smart debt. Now what I mean by a smart debt is something that actually has value to it. Credit card debt doesn't have value to it and it's going to have a high percentage rate on it. The interest is going to be anywhere from 20 to 30%, and basically you're going to be paying more in interest than you are in principal. So really the three smart debts that I would say is first is schooling, because it's an investment. And luckily right now the interest rate on schooling is quite low. There's always chances to even refinance it and to get even lower. Another great debt to have, I guess, if you're going to have a debt, is a house, because statistically speaking, and history says for itself that the housing market is going to rise if you have your house for a certain amount of time. And then the third, probably I would say and try to avoid is an automobile or a car. Sometimes there is a need, but frankly with a car, if you're buying a brand new car, it's going to, what the typical thing, it's going to lose 15% of its value right when you drive it off the lot. While it still is going to maintain its value, it's not probably the smartest debt, but it is one of the smarter debts. So that's kind of the huge thing, especially while you're younger. Don't get in the habit of having debts. And if you are, now is the time to get out of debts. It's possible to get out of debt quick. But if you are going to go into debt, like I said, make it a smart debt. I think probably the biggest rule that seems so easy but people don't understand is probably just a simple rule of spend less than you make. I think most people think that they can spend more than they make, and it's such a simple principle, but people don't understand it because it's so easy to go and use their credit card. It's so easy to use your student loans for something that you probably shouldn't. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing if people are having a hard time budgeting, is spend less than you make. What I've seen personally is a lot of people try and write down their budget, and it's a great opportunity to do it. But of my clients, I'd say less than 10% of my clients can actually write down and keep a budget. Now it's good to write a budget and at least try and follow it, but frankly, it's hard to keep the budget every month what you're really gonna have to do is every week you're gonna have to look at that budget and fine tune it, and it's a lot of work. So I would say if you are gonna do a budget, write a budget down, but don't kill yourself on trying to maintain it. If you're really following the main rules of spending less than you make, the 20-60-20 rule, like I mentioned, if you're going to save money, make it a percentage, not a dollar amount, because as your money flow increases, as it's going to do as you get older, there's no point in saying, well, I'm going to save $100 a month, and then 10 years down the road I'm making six figures and I'm only saving $100 a month. Isn't smart. One thing also that we preach is building from the base up. So really worry about your risk management, protecting yourself if anything is going to happen. Really look into getting some life insurance, some disability, making sure that your assets, your biggest assets, which is typically your income, if anything happens, you're not going to lose it. And then from there, building on top of that. Another huge thing would be just having an emergency fund. We say anywhere between 3 and 6 months, trying to have an emergency fund. If that's possible, that's a great goal to have. But really, budgeting just needs to be more simple than I think most people make it. I think people make it too complex and try too hard. I'm going to repeat myself again, and I always do when I talk to my clients. I really just think the most important things are spend less than you make, 20-60-20 rule, avoid debt, and start from the base up. And if you do that, you're going to have success. And start now while you're young. Don't wait until you're 10 years out of retirement, 15 years, even 20 years out of retirement. If you start now, compounding interest is a real thing. It's going to help you a long time in the long run, even if it's a small dollar amount right now.